So fairly or unfairly, Reg, is Mike McCarthy being judged too harshly because of the sins of Cowboys coaches past, given how things ended last year and how we think things may go this year for Mike McCarthy's football team?
KG, you know me, right?
A little bit.
What do I do sometimes in this situation?
You start to just laugh.
So, yes and no. That's always fun, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
My initial inclination is actually no. Is he being because this
okay.
I do understand the idea, the frustrations for Cowboys fans, Cowboys Nation, whatever you want to say, Cowboys onlookers, all that is there, rightfully so. Have not won the Super Bowl in 26 years. Have not been to the Super Bowl. Haven't really even gotten too particularly close over that time. So a lot of that frustration is built up, and this will be season number 3 for him at the helm of these Cowboys. And if you, I don't know how great anybody is at math, but 3 does not equal 26. You know what I mean? Like those are different numbers, right? So there's been time.
That's good math, Reg. It's good
Thanks.
math.
I've been working on it. So yeah, there is other stuff, right? But I think that a lot of those frustrations, people are pretty good at accounting to where they're due, or where a lot of people would think they would be due, which is the front office and Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones more recently, and like the organization. I think people will give those things to where they are more rightfully attributed, right? The front office. The things that Mike McCarthy does, he has his things. We're not out here acting like everybody's saying you haven't been to the Super Bowl in 25 years or 26 years because of Mike McCarthy. People are looking at it like, Mike McCarthy, why are you settling for a 58-yard field goal? Mike McCarthy, why are you having your quarterback run a situation that you say you need 14 seconds with 13 seconds, right? Why are you doing this thing where you're having your quarterback run up the middle of the field when you have no timeout, slide and try and run out a kicker? Why are you doing that thing? Why are you missing these instances? Why is it that your offense is in the second half of the season not looking as potent as it did in the first half, and you're not doing anything about it? Why is it that your team has a lot of penalties, right? Like, there's a lot of things that you can more rightfully, and maybe these things are, up for discussion, right? Maybe they aren't entirely, maybe we can't say entirely these are absolutely his fault, but we can have these conversations and they would more rightfully be placed right in Mike McCarthy's footsteps. So I don't think that the idea that he's like being unfairly, I think there's a lot of things to fairly judge him for. And I think that we really do need to talk about those things. Now, does that mean he's immediately going to be fired? I don't think so. But I think that it's rightful, or it's fair to have conversation about the things that he may not be great at.
From 1998 through 2006, the Cowboys had 1, 2, 3 head coaches. They won a total of 0 playoff games. From 2007 to 2010, when Wade Phillips was around here, they won 1 playoff game. Jason Garrett won 2 playoff games during his 9.5 years here. And, of course, Mike McCarthy 0-1 in the playoffs in the 2 seasons that he's been here. That is what we're talking about since 1998 when it comes to the amount of playoff success around here. So in some ways, is Mike McCarthy the latest coach to have all of the frustration heaped upon him because he happens to be the head coach of the most visible franchise in all of sports? Yes, but that's part of being the head coach of this football team, is that you're trying to overcome the lack of success that this franchise has had for the better part of 25, 26 years. And for him, he has to not focus on what has not happened over the last 25, 26 years and do what he can with what he has now to try and overcome that. Because if he can't, even with what he has, he's not going to be here very much longer, fairly or unfairly to him.
Right.
That is the position that he's in right now.
There's something to understanding the organization and the job that you're stepping into, right? So there's absolutely that, where even if it is unfair, this is kind of the situation. This is your lot in life. However, right, as much as folks can talk about, the disappointing loss to San Francisco last year from the standpoint of the reason why people are upset is because previous coaches haven't gotten deep in the playoffs, I can easily turn that around to have righteous indignation for the fact that you had a team that was really, really good by a lot of metrics, EPA and all sorts of things, right? Like yards, points, all those things. And you didn't look like any of that. You did not maximize any of that down the stretch, and particularly when everybody was watching on national TV when you're playing a team in San Francisco, right? Like, there was a very clear minimization of your talent. I don't even know if I'm using that word right in that context, but you did not live up to your own capabilities as a team. in the playoffs when we make it matter the most, even though, if you argue it like it's a 1-game sample size, it can't be as indicative as a full season. However, in American sports, we made these playoffs mean more than the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
So this 1-game sample size is going to dictate it. How many times do we talk about like win-loss records in playoffs and Super Bowls to talk about these things when in all reality, this is a very small portion of the professional sports experience. However, we've lifted this up. We put it on a pedestal. So if that's the case, that's the game you playing.
Yeah.
In fact, that's part of the reason why he's here is because he got to the Super Bowl and he won one, right? In that small sample size type situation, the high pressure environment of the postseason. So with that being the case, you can't then be a coach who is the Super Bowl winning coach. And then when you get a team that rightfully has the talent and has demonstrated over a 17-game season, or I guess maybe we could talk about paring that down because of the way that they played certain those games. But you get what I'm saying, right? Over a 17-game season to be a pretty good team that doesn't execute at that level, people are going to bring these questions to your doorstep, and I think rightfully so.
And I think they have to, because now what you see for the Cowboys, this particular team this year, fans, a lot of them do not care what happens in the regular season. There are a lot of fans that obviously still do care about what happens through the course of a 17-game season. But when you have a team that's projected to have the talent that it does on both sides of the football and expected to win the NFC East, or at minimum expected to get into the playoffs, it's about now what you do once you get into the tournament. And now after having a 12-5 year where you did not meet expectations given the talent level that you had and the historic numbers that you put up on both offense and defense team record-wise last year, and to still be disappointed by what you put out on the field against San Francisco, it's all about now with how you do once you get into the playoffs. And for McCarthy, that is ultimately what he will be judged on here, just like the rest of the coaches that came before him. What you do in the playoffs matters for this franchise more so than any other in the NFL because of the visibility that comes with being the head coach of this team. And if he does not live up to that, well, guess what? Someone, Dan Quinn, Sean Payton, whomever, they will be able to step into that spotlight and try to overcome the history that Mike McCarthy couldn't, because of the history that he could not overcome from the other guys that preceded him once he became head coach here.
So I guess maybe a thought experiment for us to like fully flesh out this idea is if we put this as a different team, if we put Mike McCarthy and all the circumstances in a different team that isn't the Cowboys, like in the shell of, I don't know, what's a team that's fair but not terrible? The Indianapolis Colts. Would that be fair? Right, which is funny because I think when you consider win-loss record, just regular season, because the postseason factors into a ton of why the Cowboys fans and nation feels the way that it does. Those teams actually kind of have a similar win-loss record over the last 10 years. And if you put all the circumstances in, and he is the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts with the way that it went, how do you view it looking, right? With a 12-5 season, but an unfortunate and unbefitting loss to a team in the first round. How do you think that goes?
The expectations in Indianapolis aren't the same here in Dallas. And I think there's a reason for that because of how much previous championship success the Cowboys have had. So the standard of success and excellence is different when you look at a place like Indianapolis, for example, versus here, because of what comes with being a part of this organization and the standard that they have set as they believe they should be champions, and rightfully so, given the previous success that they've had.